Winners and losers for patch 12.1 season 2. Hey guys, Petko here. It has been 2 weeks of extensive Mythic Plus testing so far onto the PTR, and if you guys haven't seen yesterday's video focusing on the millispecs, today we are talking about ranges and how they are performing following the season 2 release. Now do keep in mind, however, that things might change in the future because once again there's roughly around 5 weeks of testing, so everything you see today is basically just pretty much an early research, my opinion, and not to be taken at 100%. After all, remember, there should be 5 or 6 more class change rounds, might be even more than this, and some things might change. Today we're going to talk about performance, talk about the tier set changes, the gameplay changes, whether, you know, compared to the others, did you get the shorter end to the stick or the longer one. Anyway, enjoy the video, and as always, make sure to follow. Alright, I'm just gonna put specs randomly. I'm not gonna start from the bottom. I'm gonna first begin with the plays the same minimal changes. One of the few specs that haven't really received anything significant so far has been Demonology Warlock. Now, Demonology from season 1 to season 2 plays exactly the same. There is no significant difference when it comes down to Demonology. The tier set of Demonology is also entirely passive. If you guys haven't seen it, it should be somewhere on screen right now. And I think for the most part, if this set is get to be tuned properly, it will do actually quite a decent chunk of damage. Again, if it does get to be tuned properly. Overall, you can expect Demonology to have nice, good sustained damage, decent single target here, and for the most part, you are still going to be having the struggle of having great utility in packing Mythic Plus, as every single Warlock spec, as I already mentioned this earlier into the video, or at least in a couple of days video. If you don't have a party buff that grants damage increase to the entire party, for the most part, unless you're top DPS, you're never going to be picked up for the highest keys. Unless, once again, you're top DPS. Currently, Demo doesn't look to be a top DPS, but it most definitely does not do bad. At least for my performance, for my testing, I would say its performance was roughly around above average-ish, give or take. And speaking about Warlock, we need to discuss the counterpart to Demonology, that is Affliction. So far, they have one of the best tier sets in Mythic Plus across every single range. Honestly, I'm very happy with how they are playing. I'm going to read you the tier set, I'll tell you exactly why it's so good. Each active and stable Affliction increases your damage done by your spells and abilities by 2%, up to 6. So naturally, you're getting 6% flat damage increase because you are spamming Seed anyway. And now here's the interesting part. Seed of Corruption applies Unstable Affliction at a 50% effectiveness, which pretty much means on top of having a hold for prior damage, you're getting this tier set which applies Unstable Affliction to the main target while doing your AoE damage profile. So all of this is so nice to play. I honestly am enjoying it. Do keep in mind that the 2Ps was completely reworked. It used to refund shards. Does not do that anymore. Now it just pretty much gives you more flat out damage, passive damage, which again, it's fine. I will remind it. The current tuning of Affliction Warlock is also very strong among the top DPSs right now, at least from range point of view, which again, I'm very surprised because that's my favorite Warlock pick, and I would love to play an Affliction Lock in Mythic Plus and not play the boring Destruction Warlock spamming Rain of Fire, or, you know, the same old Demonology, which again hasn't changed a lot. So overall, very big W here for Afflilocks, and I'm looking forward to experience them next season. Alright, so next candidate is gonna be fun to play but poorly tuned. There's really only one spec here so far, and that has been Devastation Evoker, although not a whole lot has changed for Devastation Evoker, mostly the Apex Talon's slight changes here. I think the performance so far across multiple comparison between other ranges is quite poor. I would say the most significant thing about Dev here has been the Flame Shaper builds. I think I've enjoyed them a lot more than Scale Commander. Scale Commander just plays atrociously bad. I never like to play Scale Commander, and plus Flame Shaper is so nice, especially the visuals, and the summoning Firestorms so far has been a big W. Unfortunately, right now, it is not properly tuned to standards. The front load burst damage is quite good. Sustained damage a couple of seconds after you measure cooldown is pretty good, but the moment you have neither of this, you are doing pretty insignificant damage, which again, if your average level key should be fine, but the higher you go, the more that sustained damage matter in comparison to something like, let's say, Shaman or Affliction. Their sustained damage, even outside of cooldowns, is absolutely amazing. So I would love to see slightly more touch on behalf of Devastation Evoker, whether they increase the sustained damage and reduce the damage output during cooldowns. I wouldn't mind that honestly, but something has to be done. Their single target, once again, for the first 30 to 40 seconds, it's really good, but then it falls down, you know, quite a bit, which again, not the proudest moment. Okay, so the question mark bracket here is pretty much, I need more time to evaluate where exactly these specs are placing, and I'm gonna place the first one there, and that's gonna be Balance Druid. I feel like Balance Druid is a spec where it got a lot of changes from season 1 to season 2. I think likely one of the highest across all the ranges, and it's gonna end up playing exactly the same. The only difference between now and then is that you are going to be casting less spenders. So US spenders of free procs are going to be less. However, they should be now hitting slightly harder, which for the most part, I wouldn't really mind. Earlier into the season 2 PTR, they nerfed Elun's Chosen build significantly, but then they changed their mind and then reverted all the changes back, which again, right now, you're still going to be casting Starfire on a single target, Star Surge as a ST spender, and that's going to be your Elun's Chosen typical Mythic Plus build. When it comes down to sustained damage, currently Balance actually doing quite well. The damage performance is something that I wasn't really banking on being good. I mean, I was doing really good numbers, both burst and sustain, and also single target. So I'm pretty happy with the spec itself. I mean, at least from the purely damage point of view, but I wouldn't really say it's top tier right now. But definitely above average. We'll see how the future tuning is gonna work around Balance, but I really hope that spec gets some love, because last season, unfortunately, hasn't seen much play. We've seen a lot more Pharaohs than Balance Druids, because Pharaoh was really good with a physical comp. Okay, so actually, you'll be surprised how many specs play exactly the same and haven't really seen major changes. And one of the other specs that gets into this bracket is going to be Augmentation Evoker. For the most part, Augmentation Evoker hasn't seen that major of a changes apart from the tier set and a few minor changes here and there. They've been really not targeted at all, which if you guys haven't seen, last season they were meta, and they were meta for actually a long time. So them having no changes, which pretty much means they are still gonna continue to be that good of a PPV contender. Whether you play Mythic Plus rate doesn't really matter. Now the question remains is, is their output gonna match the rest of the S tier classes output? And if the answer is yes, then you are going to be very sad to find out that there might be another Augmentation Evoker season, unless their output gets to be diminished, right? So even if they are not the highest output, as long as they're like top 3, they will play it. They will play it because the overall package of Augmentation Evoker is quite strong for Mythic Plus, and unless any of the caster that has BL matches them, you know, it's gonna be tough for the ranges out there to compete with them. Overall, solid W of Aug so far. We continue to dominate, I guess, into the PTR. And now, speaking about good tier sets, good changes, and nice rotation flow and good damage, unfortunately, there's one spec that gets their crown to be removed, and that's gonna be Devourer DH. Previously one of the highest overall specs into the game, at least last season. Going into the PTR, they are not looking that hot. Their tier set, unfortunately, doesn't really interact well with the whole flow, because it focuses on Reap rather than Eradicate. Now, whether that's a bug or intention, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of builds right now that you don't really play Annihilator anymore, neither Collapsing Star, which are your major Apex talents. Now, for me personally, I feel like if a spec doesn't play the Apex talents, that means they need to be addressed to the point where they do. Now, there's already quite a few specs previously that, you know, we knew that they don't play Apex talents, so I really hope that they change the tier set to interact with Eradicate, or buff the Apex talents, or change something to the point where we actually use them. Because right now, most of the builds that Devourer DH are playing are melee builds that don't play Apex talents and don't cast Collapsing Star, and instead you cast a Rip on cooldown, even non-buffed, non-eradicated Rip, which is kind of weird because most of the time we used to ignore that back in the days. I don't know. I think it's a weird direction of the spec so far, and I really hope to see more changes coming up very soon. Alright, so that being said, there's another spec that has pretty meh tier set, but overall changes so far for them has been amazing, and that's gonna be Shadow Priest. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of the tier set, especially the 4-piece. I mean, casting Vampiric Touch as a manual button inside your AoE rotation in Mythic Plus, it's pretty weird for the most part. I don't really like it. Now, I see a world where you manually Vampiric Touch targets if there's, let's say, a 15 targets because you have 2 charges of your Tentacle Slam and you want to apply 3 extra, Vampiric Touches. I could see a world where this can actually work out, but imagine you playing like 5 targets, you do your rotation, you're capping on Insanity, you gotta press Mind Blast, you gotta press your Mind Flare, for example, Devouring Plague, and spend your Void Volleys and all of this, and on top of this having to cast Vampiric Touch, and if you're playing Invoke Nightmare, you gotta manually cast Shadow Word Pain. Overall, it does sound like a pain to me. 1 extra button, so much effort for pretty much minimal reward. I'm not a fan of. I think for rate-wise, this set is definitely better than Mythic Plus. I really hope they change the 4-piece to trigger from Mind Flare or Mind Blast. That would be a lot more native in their gameplay, in my opinion. But overall, every other change done to the spec has been absolutely amazing, and I've been a big fan of, especially the newest talent they've received in the past couple of weeks. If you guys haven't seen, I've already spoke about this many times on all videos. Shade Burst, the newest talent, is absolutely crazy good. Pretty much gives you a lot more passive damage, which again I am a big fan of. Visually not pleasing because there isn't really any visuals in that one, but for now, the rotation flow of Shadow Priest, if I exclude the tier set here, Hiccup, is amazing. However, I must say this is every time you play Invoke Nightmare builds, the gameplay becomes so terrible for me. I feel like they gotta make a way to perhaps buff Shadow Word Pain base damage and nerf Invoke Nightmare, so this way you play Misery all the time because the gameplay becomes so much more enjoyable, and at the same time you don't sacrifice damage loss into the raid by playing with Misery. Instead you just play Invoke Nightmare. I think that could be a solving issue. They added Void Volley, by the way, as a really hard hitting button, so now every time you press Meta you get either 3 or 5 Void Volleys to press. And I think if you play Arcane, there's a talent Arcane where every time you press Shadow Word Madness, which is just Spender or Devouring Plague, whatever you want to call it, you trigger Void Volley, which is really powerful spell. I think on my lock on 17 key, I counted for like roughly 7.5% of my overall, which is really good. For a button that you press during meta, I mean, I'll take it so far. Overall, huge W for Shadow Priest. Looking forward to 4 more changes done to respect. Alright, we haven't spoken about mages. Let's start that. First, let's discuss Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage, one of the few specs that received not only a good tier set, but also a very good changes going to the next season. Pretty much their whole rotation flow now is a lot more consistent, and it just plays better, especially the part where you don't have to play Arcane Pulse anymore. You're not really locked into it, although they did some changes to it, and I still feel like most of the players are not picking it up. So that gotta get changed somehow so they get to be influenced by playing it. On top of this, Arcane has become one of the tankiest spec into the game. Now, if you guys remember last season, Arcane was really squishy to the point where I think they had the highest amount of deaths in Mythic Plus in the raid by a large amount in comparison to the second most squishy spec. This time around, that is not going to be the case. Arcane passively got a lot of durability, and also you have a double barrier now, Sheets and Meat here as well. Overall, I think they are heading into the right direction. And even if you exclude the nice changes and exclude the durability buffs, the current damage profile or just general damage performance is quite strong, likely one of the top range specs right now by pure just raw damage. So once again, mages are eating good this time around. However, I focused on Arcane. Okay, and speaking about Arcane, let's talk about now Frost. Now Frost Mage, in comparison to Arcane, hasn't really seen a whole lot of changes. The only thing that they did to Frost Mage coming from Season 1 to Season 2 is that they nerfed your burst damage by a little bit, and they tried to compensate your sustained damage, and that's about it. Your rotation flow plays exactly the same. I think the tier set itself, although it sounds nice to get extra spikes on your 4-piece, or have a chance to get extra spike on a 4-piece, it overall is definitely heavily RNG'd, and it feels nice when you hit it, and if you don't, kind of a bummer. For the most part, you can expect Frost to play exactly the same as before, or at least mostly similar than before. And I can't really say anything much there because there hasn't been really much. They've tried or attempted to fix the durability on Frost, although Season 1, Frost was definitely the tankiest mage spec. Right now, they're not. Arcane is by far better choice in terms of durability. But yeah, I really want to see some Frost changes, maybe shake up the gameplay and be focused on different areas. So far, it just plays a little bit boring for me. I'm sorry, it definitely plays a little bit boring. Okay, now I have teased you enough. We spoke about good specs and bad specs. Now it's time to speak about the Armageddon, the horrible gameplay, the spec that every time I play, I get, I don't know the word. I mean, I know the word, but I don't want to say it. That's gonna be MM Hunter. MM Hunter is absolutely terrible to play Mythic Plus so far, and in Raid. So their whole goal of MM Hunter, they did a whole lot of changes. I think like around 3 pages combined together. The whole goal of MM Hunter was pretty much reduce the damage output during cooldowns and increase the sustained damage. Have they accomplished that? I don't know. I would say for the most part, kinda, because your damage during city is definitely lower than before. However, here's a twist. The whole gameplay loop is so bad that I'm just gonna out it for the game. So your aim shots, they try to move away the damage from aim shots. Your aim shots are very slow. The baseline is actually quite high. For the most part, I think it was like 2.3 seconds or so. My aim shot casts, they're so slow that if there's any frontal coming to you or any puddle, you have to stop casting it to move, and therefore you lose a lot of damage. So I feel like every spell that you hits like a wet noodle. And for the most part, I'm not happy with their not only performance but also the flow. The rework on explosive shot actually sounds quite good. I think I really enjoy that aspect because at the end of the day, they needed extra button. They're heading in the right direction. However, they need to make sure aim shot is just like maybe 1.8 second cast or 1.5 second cast, because we are playing Midnight. We're not playing Classic WoW. We don't have one spell only to press it. We have so many spells. So the whole rotation flow gets to be really poor when one of your major damage hitting spell is like, you know, takes 3 business days to arrive in comparison to most specs. I mean, hell, fucking Arcane Mage is casting Frostbolts like machine gun. Meanwhile, this guy is casting, you know, 2.3 seconds aim shot just to hit like a wet noodle. Why? One aim shot is like what? One of my Elemental Blast cast on my Shaman. Even less than that. You know? Come on, guys. They need to really change that because it's really annoying to play. Alright. One more spec that is pretty much unchanged the way they play. That is going to be Devastation Warlock. Not a whole lot change here for this run. Rotation loop mostly the same. Once again, Cataclysm, Conflagrate, Rain of Fire, and that's pretty much your whole loop in AoE. You do have to cast as well your major cooldowns. Summon Inferno does big damage. The sustain AoE of this rock looks to be really good. Burst looks to be really good. Single target looks to be portable. I think if they buff single target somehow, without making it too OP in AoE, Destro might be a quite good candidate right now. I think Chaos Bolt and Incinerate to get buffed, because right now I think under 20% you never ever cast bolts. I believe they only cast Shadow Burns. Again, I'm not a Destrolock myself. From all the testing so far, that's what I found out, that it's actually more worth to cast it compared to Chaos Bolts. So I think Chaos Bolt should get buffed by, I don't know, 20%, 25% to hit like a truck. That would be amazing. The tier set, I feel like, is not a bad tier set. I mean, if you read about it, Incinerate has a chance to trigger Echo of the Sargeras. The problem is, you don't cast a lot of Incinerates inside AoE rotation. So they should make Incinerate and Conflagrate, right? Because most of the time, whenever you fight, let's say, 8 targets, you have so many shards that your buttons are pretty much Conflagrate, Rain of Fire, Conflagrate, Rain of Fire, Shadow Burn, free proc, you press it, and that's it. You only ever cast Incinerate if you really have nothing to press, right? Now, the 4-piece synergizes really well with the 2-piece. So if they make the 2-piece, for example, work with the Conflagrate, or maybe Wither or Corruption has a chance to, you know, Immolate or Wither has a chance to proc that, that might be even better. I don't know. I'm just saying. Incinerate is not really the button that I will be pressing a lot in AoE. For single target, again, sure, it makes sense, but yeah. Overall, I expect to see more changes coming to Destro. Most of the capstones are useless. I want them to get buffed. Yeah, I think that's it so far from Destro. At least the performance is not as bad. I think definitely above average here, especially in AoE. Looking solid, but ST has to get buffed somehow because I am dying of doing no ST. I think it's definitely mid-ish, maybe a little bit the ST part. Not good. Alright, now speaking about insane tier sets, there are two specs that go here. The first one's gonna be Ele Shaman. I think Elemental Shaman tier set so far has been absolutely amazing. The free cast on your spenders, whether you cast your Elemental Blast or Earthquake, it's actually quite good. Like if you read about the 4 set, just read about the 4 set. When Stormkeeper Ascendance fades, your next 2 lightning bolts, shell lightnings, lava burst deals more damage. Good. And they cause your next spender ability to be free. Okay, that is the 4-piece, by the way. That is such a good 4-piece, and I feel like it works well in Mythic Plus and in Raid because your 2-piece buffs your spenders by 25%. So very good tier set so far. I'm happy with it. The rotation loop of Elemental, you're gonna be surprised, you don't play Stormbringer anymore. Stormbringer has been nerfed, especially the Tempest part, and I'm actually quite happy. The reason why is because we've been playing that build for like how many years? 2 years now, and it gets a bit boring. So I'm really happy with the direction that Farseer is going so far. Sustain damage of this spec is looking to be crazy good. Crazy good sustain, very strong ST, very strong burst. The only thing that the Elemental doesn't have is prio damage. If there's a spec with you that can do the prio, I think LA was gonna be a very strong contender because once again, on top of every single good thing that you have also one of the most broken raid buffs in the game, which is called Sky Fury. Extremely strong raid buff and a Bloodlust and a very good utility. You got stuns and roots and slows and the curses and poison spells and purges. You know, like which spec can do that? Tell me. The utility is crazy. 10 out of 10. I really hope to see more in the next patch. I certainly am gonna be one. And the last spec that goes into the insane tier set has to be Beast Mastery Hunter. I'm really happy, by the way, about the Beast Mastery Hunter for the most part. Even though the rotation play quite similar to before, right now they have a lot more emphasis towards Cobra Shot. I kid you not, Cobra Shot sometimes can be your top damage, even in Mythic Plus, which is, you know, crazy. But the 4-piece pretty much is you stomp causes your next Cobra Shot to either benefit from Beast Cleave or strike your primary target by, you know, more damage. And that's gonna stack up 4 times, right? So again, how do you stomp? Most of the time, Bark Shot is gonna be the go-to stomps, not only though. And the rotation loop is very nice. You stomp, you Cobra Shot, you kill command. It's pretty much stomp, trigger tier set, trigger Apex Talents, right? Just again, a big W so far. I've been really liking the gameplay loop. Single target wise, I think this spec is the clear winner. There is nobody else in this game that can top the ST of BM Hunter right now. In Raid as well, in Mythic Plus as well. Hunter's Mark got buffed as well for the most part. If you guys haven't seen it, it now applies to 5 targets. Well, if you want to spend the 5 globals, if you don't, then that's fine. They're gonna probably fix it at some point. I am very happy with the BM Hunter so far. Every single Hunter spec outside of MM Hunter has been great. Survivor is doing pretty well. Beam is doing pretty well. Thumbs up. Fuck the MM, whatever. That spec is dead anyway. Alright, and the last spec we're gonna talk about today is gonna be Fire Mage. Unfortunately for Fire Mage, once again, not a whole lot has changed here. For the most part, you are still going to play quite similar to before. With the biggest difference here has to be with the change of your Apex Talents, which got slightly nerfed in a compensation of overall more flat out buffs. And the reason why they did this is because they want to make sure that your sustained damage becomes better. That's pretty much the whole theme of next patch. Nerf the burst classes, give them more sustain. Same things happen here to Fire Mage. They are forcing you to play Pyroclasm because your tier set wants you to play it, and they are diminishing the amount of damage you do inside combustion, but they're compensating this by giving you more sustained damage. Now, historically speaking, Fire Mage has always done tank damage without cooldowns. And there's been so many seasons where, you know, even though Fire Mage did no damage outside of combustion, during cities they were doing crazy damage to the point where they were overtaking auto specs by 2-folds or 3-folds even, which is, again, I can give many examples. BFA, for example, is the most recent one that I could remember. Shadowland Season 1, I think they were doing also very, very strong burst damage with their Flame Strike. So, yeah, I think although I'm not sure exactly where the direction of Fire Mage is heading, I don't want to say whether it's good or bad so far. I think for the most part, currently, their performance isn't really doing well. But then again, there is no tier list yet. I'm not going to talk about how you compare against others in terms of pure damage. But just so you know, not looking great, at least from that aspect. Design-wise, I can't say much. I'm going to wait more until more time passes so we can see more changes done to Fire Mage. That's it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you guys have learned something or at least have some broad idea of how your spec is playing so far. Do keep in mind, once again, I'm going to give you another exclamation mark, 5 or 6 more weeks until next season comes out. These things might change. Those are pretty much the early winners and losers. Tier list is not yet available. Likely it will be available once we get to test every single dungeon, which will be happening next week. So hopefully, if everything goes to plan, next Sunday there should be the first iteration of our progressive Mythic Plus tier list. Until then, if you haven't seen the Mythic version of this video, check it out. It's gonna be in the comments down below. And yeah, make sure to follow the channel if you guys want to stay on top of the news and pretty much all the important stuff happening in WoW. Until then, take it easy. Thank you for watching, and it's been my pleasure to show this video for you. Bye for now.